Imagine the gray dawn settling over distant fields and ancient castles, where the echoes of armor and the distant call of a church bell signal the start of another day. As the morning fog rolls back, sunlight catches on weathered stone towers and narrow windows, bringing to life the silent stories held within these fortress walls. This is a world shaped by honor, conflict, and resilience, where every scar on a shield, every worn saddle, every silent oath speaks of centuries spent surviving, fighting, and dreaming beneath uncertain skies. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. It's always fascinating to see people from all over the world gathering here to immerse themselves in the past together. Now, dim the lights, get comfortable, and let's dive into the lives of medieval knights. How they survived, the secrets their castles held, and why even an ordinary knight could become your life as a medieval French knight. Dim the lights, settle beneath your blanket, and close your eyes. Imagine the world as it was centuries ago, in the rolling green heart of medieval France. The air outside your stone window is scented with a cool hint of wood smoke and distant fields, and in the gentle hush of the evening, the world feels as old as time itself. Tonight, you're not yourself. You are a knight, a chevalier, born into a world of castles, chivalry, and duty. As you listen, let the gentle rhythms of the past guide you into peaceful rest. The long road, begins. Life as a page. You are just 7 years old when your journey begins. Imagine your family's manor, warm, the scents of fresh bread and drying herbs, the softness of rushes underfoot. But soon you must leave all this behind. At dawn, as the world is bathed in pale, misty light, you are led by your parents to the stone gates of your lord's castle. Life as a page is a lesson in patience and humility. You wake with the crow of the rooster, the straw mattress beneath you still cool from the night. As you rise, you smell the mingling aromas of hearth smoke and morning dew on the castle's thick stone walls. Each day is filled with small, important tasks. Running messages through echoing halls, helping in the kitchens, learning to set the heavy wooden table for feasts. Your hands grow rough from carrying water buckets and polishing boots. Your knees scuffed from kneeling to sweep rushes or tend to the castle's dogs. Yet, between these humble chores, you begin your education. If you are fortunate, a patient old tutor shows you the careful loops of the Latin alphabet. And sometimes, when lessons are over, you slip away to the bailey, where wooden practice swords clatter and scrape on packed earth. The air is always alive with sound, the clank of metal, the cheerful shouts of other pages, the distant toll of a bell marking the hours. You learn discipline, humility, and the first lessons of service, your small world enclosed in the thick safety of the castle walls. When the day ends, you gather by the flickering fire in the hall, the aroma of roasting meat mingling with candle wax and the musk of old stone. Outside, the wind sighs in the branches, and sleep comes quickly beneath your thin woolen blanket, dreams filled with visions of nights and distant adventures. Teku, a squire's burden, the trials of youth. At 14, you become a squire. You are taller now, your shoulders broadening, your hands strong. The world is wider, and so are your burdens. Your days are no longer spent just in study and service. You are now the shadow of a true knight. The air is heavy with the scent of oiled leather and iron as you polish armor. Each plate and rivet must gleam, for any flaw might mean death in battle. You sharpen swords until your fingers ache, careful not to miss a nick along the edge. Your master's life, you know, might rest on the keen point of that steel. You ride out at dawn, the world around you waking with bird song and the soft jangle of harness. The war horse you are learning to master is immense, its breath steaming in the chilly air, the coarse hair of its mane running through your gloved fingers. Climbing into the saddle is a challenge, each ride a lesson in balance and determination. Your body aches with bruises from countless falls, the rough taste of dust and grass a familiar companion. Yet you learn to rise, again and again, until riding feels as natural as walking. Sometimes you are called to the field, real battles, not just practice. The clang of armor, the cries of men, the sharp, metallic scent of blood and sweat in the air. Fear is always there, but you press on, for your duty is to your knight, to drag him to safety if he falls, to stand by his side when danger comes. Evenings bring a quiet, bone-deep weariness. You sit by the fire, your skin tingling with lingering heat, your mind replaying the day's dangers. You hear the quiet prayers of your companions, their hopes for safety and honor drifting up with the smoke to the dark, star-pierced sky. Third, the night's vigil, the final step. When you turn 21, your years of training and service are rewarded. You are called to a solemn ceremony, a vigil that will change your life forever. You spend the night before in solitude, in the quiet chapel, kneeling on cold flagstones, the candlelight flickering over the polished steel laid out before you. The scent of beeswax, incense, and ancient stone fills your senses. You pray not for glory, but for the wisdom and courage you will need in the years to come. In the morning, you don your armor for the first time as a knight. Each piece is heavy, the cuirass pressing on your shoulders, the helmet narrowing your vision, the gauntlets stiff but protective. Beneath the weight, you feel the gravity of duty settle into your bones. You kneel before your lord, the tap of his sword on your shoulders cool and sharp, a symbol of all the discipline, sacrifice, and service that have brought you here. The hall is filled with soft light and the scent of fresh herbs. Your companions watch with quiet pride. You rise a knight, Chevalier de France. Purport: the days of a knight, duty, challenge, and quiet moments. As a knight, your days are a cycle of training, management, and war. Sometimes you are called to campaign, riding for weeks through wind and rain, your armor growing heavier with each muddy mile. The scent of damp wool and horse sweat is your constant companion. Battles are chaos. The world narrows to the ring of your helmet, the metallic clang of sword on shield, the shouting of men and the thunder of hooves. Through the slits of your visor, you catch only fragments, a flash of sunlight on steel, the blur of banners in the distance, the acrid taste of fear and determination on your tongue. But not every day is war. When you return to your manor, you oversee the land, walk the fields where wheat nods in the breeze, listen to the lowing of cattle in the pastures. The work is never truly done. Peasants come to you with their troubles. You judge disputes, collect rents, and tend to the needs of your small community. In the quiet moments, you watch the sunrise gild the world outside your window, the early mist rising off the fields. Sometimes you train a new page, your steady voice passing on the hard-won lessons of patience, courage, and honor. The circle of tradition continues. At night, after a day of duty, you find peace by the fire, the crackle of logs, the soft murmur of voices, the comfort of familiar scents, leather, wood smoke, the faint trace of wild thyme brought in with the evening wind. Sleep comes slowly, softly, your body finally relaxing under the weight of so many days lived for others. V. Chivalry and legacy, the quiet end. A knight's life is not all battle and glory. The code of chivalry, loyalty, honor, the defense of the weak, guides your choices even when no one is watching. You feel the weight of the past and the hope for the future in every act of service. Years pass. The lines on your hands deepen, your hair flecked with gray, but your mind remains steady. You have seen both hardship and happiness, your life a tapestry woven with duty, sacrifice, and rare treasured moments of peace. If you are fortunate, your final days are spent in the same stone manor where you began. You listen to the wind in the poplars outside, the laughter of children echoing in the halls. You remember the feel of your first wooden sword, the pride of knighthood, the honor of serving others. And as sleep takes you, gentle, warm, surrounded by those you love, you know you have lived well, your story now part of the timeless song of France. The French Knight, daily life and home, dwelling and surroundings. Imagine waking before dawn, the first pale light barely touching the vine-laced hills outside your window. The walls of your manor rise pale and sturdy above the misty fields, a place of quiet safety, hewn from cool limestone, softened by centuries of hands and hearts that called it home. Inside, the air carries gentle scents, wood smoke from last night's hearth, the green brightness of rushes spread across flagstone floors, and the faint sweetness of apples ripening in the orchard beyond the walls. You walk through corridors where old tapestries mute the echoes of your footsteps, their woven scenes, both decoration and warmth, against the chill. Your chambers are small, the bed deep and welcoming, layered with furs and wool, a silent refuge after every long day. Beyond your window, you can hear the estate waking. Distant voices in the stable, the clatter of hooves, hens scratching in the yard, and somewhere the soft splash of water in the fish pond. Everywhere, the land feels alive, a patchwork of gardens, grazing meadows, tidy fields, and rows of grapevines heavy in the late summer sun. Daily routine and duties. Your days begin in hush and shadow, with soft prayers offered in a small chapel washed in golden candlelight. The house is still cool, the windows glazed with dew, and your first meal is simple. Dense bread, a wedge of cheese, a sip of watered wine, maybe a tart green apple picked from your own trees. After breakfast, you step outside, boots brushing through damp grass. The air is fresh and sweet, scented with wild thyme and distant rain. You check the horses in their stalls, powerful destriers snorting clouds into the morning, waiting for their day's work. You speak with the steward, reviewing the day's work, repairing a fence, settling a quarrel between neighbors, watching over the harvest. Sometimes you hear a knock at your chamber door, a tenant with a worry about his sheep, a servant with a message, a squire eager to show his new skill with the lance. You listen, advise, decide, always aware that your word shapes the peace of your land. Most mornings you train in the bailey, the clang of wooden swords, the rhythm of hooves circling the yard, the shouted encouragements echo beneath the old stone walls. You help the young squires find their balance in the saddle, watch them strive and stumble, remembering your own first lessons years ago. Sometimes, if the season is right, you hunt, riding out under the arching sky with hounds baying at your side, the world fresh and wild around you. Or perhaps you walk the fields, feeling the soil between your fingers, grateful for the slow, sure promise of another harvest. By late afternoon, you may rest, reading a letter from a friend, or walking quietly among the grapevines as the sun leans low. In the cool shadows of evening, the estate gathers for supper. The great hall glows with firelight, the air rich with the scent of roasted meat, herbs, and baking bread. After the meal, there is music, the soft twining of lutes and flutes, a low song rising above the crackle of the hearth. You lean back, comforted by the presence of family and friends, letting the gentle sounds of laughter and story lull you toward rest. Food and table. Meals are humble but always sustaining. Breakfast is black bread, cheese cut from a wheel cured in your own cellar, and fruit from the orchard. Sweet plums in summer, apples in the autumn, walnuts gathered before the frost. The midday meal is a hearty stew, simmered with beef or wild game, thick with beans, carrots, and onions from your garden. On feast days, the table is filled with spice-laced pies, golden pastries, and honeyed sweets, all shared with guests and family. Wine is served at nearly every meal, sometimes robust and red from your own vineyard, sometimes mixed with herbs for flavor or health. Food is eaten simply, with a knife, sometimes with fingers, bread serving as both plate and sustenance. Salt is precious, saved for honored company. Prayers and thanks mark the beginning and end of every meal. Clothing and comfort. You dress in linen and thick wool, layers to ward off morning chill and keep you dry through sudden storms. On cold days, you wrap yourself in a heavy cloak trimmed with fur, boots soft and sturdy on stone and earth. The colors of your tunics, deep blue, crimson, forest green, announce your family's wealth and taste. Armor hangs polished and ready in the armory, mail and plate, well kept by your squires, await both familiar and reassuring when called upon. At night, your bed is curtained against the draught. Mattresses are stuffed with straw and herbs covered in the warmth of sheepskin and fox pelts. Sometimes, before sleep, you warm a stone in the fire and slip it under the covers, a small luxury against the cold. Hygiene and health. Bathing is a rare treat. On special days, a wooden tub is set near the fire, water heated with labor and patience, sometimes perfumed with lavender or rosemary. You wash with a rough linen cloth, letting the warmth soak away the aches of long days. Illness is met with faith in herbs. Sage for a cough, honey for a wound, poultices for fever. The air inside your home carries the mingled scents of wood smoke, horses' sweat, and, on holy days, incense from the chapel. A small privy stands apart from the main house. Rushes and fresh herbs are always brought inside to keep the living spaces fresh. Family and social life. Family is at the center of everything. You share your meals, your prayers, and the quiet duties of daily life with your wife and children. The lady of the manor oversees the running of the household, stores, linens, gardens, and servants, while you see to the peace and safety of your lands. Squires and pages live among you, learning the rhythms of service and discipline, eager for their chance to grow into knighthood. Guests are welcomed with open doors, music, and food. A stranger may find shelter at your hearth. A friend is always given the best place at the table. Holy days are marked with church and feasting, long evenings of song and storytelling, games played before the fire. Through every season, your home is a place of safety and custom, where the rituals of hospitality and faith are as old as the stones themselves. And as the candles burn low, you walk one last time through your quiet halls, listening to the wind outside and feeling a deep, gentle gratitude for land, for family, for the steady, unhurried pace of your nightly life. The French night at war, ritual and preparation. Before battle, the world slows. You rise before dawn, when the castle is still quiet, the sky stained with the first hints of blue. There's a chill in the courtyard as you join your brothers, the stone damp beneath your boots, the air sharp with wood smoke and the distant scent of wet grass. Your squire appears, already awake and nervous, arms full of gear. First, the thick quilted gambeson, stiff but oddly comforting, a barrier against both steel and the morning's cold. Then the weight of your mail, every ring cool against your skin, drawn over your shoulders and fastened with careful hands. Each layer builds, the surcoat embroidered with your family's colors and crest, the heavy spurs buckled tight at your heels, the plates strapped onto shoulders, arms, and shins, polished until the early sun glimmers on every edge. Your sword is belted at your hip, the leather well worn and oiled. Gauntlets slide on finger by finger. Your squire checks the straps, fingers trembling as you murmur quiet encouragement. You both know what's coming. Outside, the horses are waiting, huge muscled destriers shifting restlessly, stamping at the flagstones. Their breath steams in the chill, and as you approach, you lay your hand on your mount's neck, feeling the heat and the steady, nervous pulse beneath. You check the saddle's girth, tighten the bridle, and brush stray dust from his mane. Then, a quiet moment, a whispered prayer for courage, for skill, for the hope of returning. The air is thick with anticipation. Your comrades are silent, some kneeling in prayer, others gripping spears, adjusting shields, or simply staring at the horizon where a golden haze promises both hope and dread. There is the jangle of armor, the low murmur of men, the distant clang of a smith at work, and always the heavy waiting stillness, like the moment before a summer storm. On the field, when the order comes, you mount in one fluid movement, feeling the power of your destrier ripple beneath you. You settle into the saddle, lance upright, shield at your side, vision narrowed by your helm's slit. You form into lines, banners fluttering overhead, each bright with the colors of proud houses. Around you, the sounds swell, hooves pounding the earth, armor creaking and rattling, men shouting to one another above the din. Your heart beats heavy in your chest, matching the rhythm of the drums and horns. The ground trembles as the charge begins. At first, there is only the rush of wind past your ears, the rising roar of voices, the gleam of sunlight on steel. The world narrows, just you, your brothers, and the enemy ahead. Then the collision, a wall of shields, the thunder of hooves, the crash as lance meets armor and bodies slam together. Your own lance shatters, splinters flying, the jolt running up your arm and rattling your teeth. Suddenly, you are in the press, mud flying, men shouting, the clash of sword on sword, iron ringing against iron. Breathing is hard inside your helm, the air hot and thick. You fight almost by instinct. Shield up, sword swinging, muscles burning as you parry, thrust, and turn. Around you, the chaos is absolute. Friends and foes alike are lost in the surge. Cries of pain and triumph mingling with the stomp of horses and the whir of arrows overhead. You catch glimpses, your lord's banner rising and falling, the flash of a squire helping a wounded knight to safety, the sudden shock of a riderless horse crashing past. The battle's tide shifts again and again. One moment you are surging forward, the next holding ground, holding breath, holding on. For the French knight, honor is everything. Every act, bold, desperate, or simply determined, is seen, remembered, and recounted. You fight for your king, for your land, for the stories that will be sung in warm halls long after the mud and blood have faded. Siege and defense. But not every battle is open field. Sometimes war is a long, cold wait atop stone walls. You stand with your men on the battlements, eyes scanning the fields below for movement. The enemy camps in the distance, banners marking the horizon, smoke from their cook fires curling into the sky. You hear the groan and creak of catapults in the night, the sudden shout as stones crash against the walls, the slap of arrows against shield and stone. You move along the parapets, encouraging your men, watching as cauldrons of boiling oil are readied, as archers nock arrows, as stones and logs are heaved into place above the gate. Days blur into nights, marked by hunger, exhaustion, and tension. Rations shrink. Hopes rise and fall with each rumor of relief, surrender, or a new assault. The air inside the castle grows heavy, close and smoky, tinged with fear, sweat, and the slow-burning resolve of men and women determined to endure. Every dawn brings new possibility. The horn that signals attack, or the flag of truce, or simply the return of sun on the battered stones. Wounds and valor. You measure victory not just in land or banners captured, but in the scars you bring home. If you fall, it is your loyal squire or brother-in-arms who reaches for you, dragging you from the melee, braving arrows and axes, binding wounds as best they can in the mud and noise. Wounds are painful, but more than that, they are stories, tokens of valor that you will show to your children in years to come, proof of promises kept and dangers faced. And when, at last, the fighting ends and silence falls over the field, you feel every ache and bruise, every trembling muscle. You help the wounded, gather the lost, search for your friends among the faces of the living and the fallen, and then, in the pale light of evening, you give thanks to God for your life, to your companions for their courage, to your horse for carrying you through. You return to the courtyard, armor battered, eyes tired, but spirit unbroken, grateful for another sunrise, another song, another day in the land you have sworn to defend. Your journey as a medieval English knight. Now let yourself drift across the channel. Leave behind the sunlit vineyards and high stone walls of France. You arrive in England, a land veiled in mist and memory, where the air is damp and the wind always carries a whisper of rain. Breathe in the deep, earthy scent of wet grass after a night of gentle drizzle. Imagine ancient oaks rising out of the fog, roots twisting into hills where history sleeps beneath the soil. Here, every morning feels like the start of a legend told softly in the language of clouds and crows. I, rooted in tradition, childhood in the manor. Your earliest memory is of damp wool and the sound of rain tapping gently against the small leaded panes of your family's manor house. You are born into a lineage that is neither royal nor poor, but ancient, woven into the folds of England's wild green tapestry. The beams above your bed are black with age and smoke, the fire in the hall forever burning low with peat and oak, scenting the air with a calm, earthy warmth. In the mornings, you slip out of bed while the house is still quiet, padding across chilly flagstones as a pale silver light seeps through the window. You love the hidden corners, the kitchen where bread cools on the hearth, the hay loft where you can peer down at the grooms brushing ponies whose breath steams in the morning chill. You learn the world by your senses. The fields are muddy, boots never quite dry, the bracing wind always nipping at your neck. You watch your father's steady hands as he inspects the horses, listens to tenants, and oversees the larder. Your mother is the heart of the house, keeping the fire, the store of cheese and apples, the linens and the herbs. Outside, you run through the grass still slick with dew, chasing geese, climbing the gnarled oaks that stand like sentinels in the mist. Comfort is rare. A thick cloak, a bowl of hot pottage, or a smile from the cook when she sneaks you a slice of apple. But you learn early that hardship is part of the land, and that endurance brings its own quiet satisfaction. Your childhood is shaped by the rhythm of rural life, every season weaving a new color into the memory of home. 2. The apprenticeship, growing in the English year. When you are old enough, you become a page in your own house or that of a neighboring lord. Duties are simple but never-ending. You sweep the hall, fetch water, carry messages, and learn to ride under the steady gaze of the old stable master. In spring, you help with lambing, your hands trembling as you cradle a wet, fragile life, breathing in the scent of grass and hope. Summer means long days spent learning the sword, first with wooden blades, then with blunted steel. You sweat beneath the sun, hands blistered, arms aching, but proud each time your strike rings true. The kitchen gardens buzz with bees, and evenings are filled with the laughter of servants picnicking among rows of peas and onions, the fireflies blinking like tiny stars. Autumn is a time for gathering apples, nuts, and memories. You help bring in the harvest, boots sticky with mud and cider, the satisfaction of full barns and loaded cellars. The air is spiced with wood smoke, bonfires flickering against the early dusk, stories shared around the fire. Winter tests you. The stone floors are icy. Frost etches its white lace on the windows, and the wind howls through cracks in the walls. You wake early to break ice for the horses, your breath billowing as you haul wood for the kitchen. You spend long evenings learning your letters by candlelight, listening to tales of knights and lost kings, legends of Arthur and Robin Hood. You come to understand that to survive an English winter is not just to wait it out, but to find strength in patience, work, and the steadfast comfort of family. Third, becoming a knight, service and stewardship. As you grow stronger, the household changes. Now you are a squire, trusted with more, tending the master's armor, learning to care for hounds and hawks, helping with the accounts, and keeping an eye on the young pages who follow after you. Your training grows rigorous. You practice archery, your fingers stained by bowstring and the smell of beeswax. You ride for hours through the tangled woods, wary of wild boar and the chance of outlaws. You learn to mend harness and tack, to sew torn surcoats, to balance accounts beside the fire while rain pelts the thatch above. Service is not only about the sword, but about patience, fairness, and watching over the people and land entrusted to you. You help resolve disputes. Whose sheep strayed into which field? Whose roof needs patching? Which tenant needs more seed for the spring? The day of your knighthood dawns with the soft toll of church bells. You keep vigil in the chapel, kneeling through the cold hours of the night, the candles flickering as you reflect on the meaning of loyalty and duty. At sunrise, the priest blesses your sword. Your lord fastens the golden spurs to your feet. Now, as a knight, your oath is not just to fight, but to serve and protect. The armor feels heavy, but you wear it with pride, the weight of all who came before settling on your shoulders. Fourth, the mind and heart of the English knight. Your daily life as a knight is defined less by battles and more by the quiet, patient stewardship of your manner. You rise before dawn to review the state of the fields, the condition of the flocks, the repairs after a storm. The people look to you not only for defense, but for guidance, wisdom, and the quiet reassurance that the land will endure. There are times when violence comes, a border feud, a summons to fight for your lord or the king, a sudden threat in the woods, you answer, but without drama. You steady your horse at the crest of a muddy hill, the wind biting your face, remembering all the long winters that have shaped your resolve. In battle, you move with measured calm, side by side with your men, your mind focused on the rhythm of sword, shield, and the prayer always beneath your breath. You have seen loss, good men buried beneath heavy earth, widows weeping in the nave, the smell of incense mingling with sorrow. You grieve, but in silence, seeking comfort in the rituals of the chapel, in the steady work of the fields, in the laughter of children playing in the dusk. Your strength is not in seeking glory, but in enduring, quiet, steady, and always returning to the slow, faithful work of the land. Vor, legacy, and nightfall. Wisdom passed on. Years pass, and the manor grows quieter. You see your own hands growing lined and worn, old scars softened by time. In the golden light of evening, you stand at the window, looking out over the familiar patchwork of meadows and woods, hedges and winding streams. The rain might fall, the fields may flood or frost, but you feel peace, a life shaped by service, patience, and the love of home. You teach the young squire to mend leather, to wait for the blackbird's song at dusk, to read the signs of weather and the ways of men. You pass on the lessons learned not in battle, but in the silent endurance of many years, that patience and kindness outlast even the strongest walls. As night gathers, you wrap yourself in blankets that smell of lavender, peat, and the faint sweetness of smoke. The owl calls outside. Water drips softly from the eaves, and you find yourself drifting into sleep, a sleep filled with gentle dreams of misty fields, loyal hounds, and the quiet hope of another English dawn. The English night, life and home, dwelling in atmosphere. Imagine waking in the quiet gray before dawn, the cool air thick with the scent of wet earth, moss, and distant peat fires. Your home stands firm at the edge of the woods, a moated manor house, or a sturdy stone keep, perhaps with black timbered beams and whitewashed walls, rising above misty meadows and the slow glint of a nearby stream. The land is always damp underfoot. Dew settles heavy on grass and stone, and rain often drums softly on the thatched or slate roof, soothing and familiar. Inside, the halls are broad but dim, lit by rushlights and the flicker of the hearth. Floors are paved with uneven stone or packed earth, strewn with layers of rushes and dried herbs, lavender, mint, and rosemary, adding freshness, warding off pests, and sweetening the heavy air. The walls are lined with woven tapestries or painted scenes of battles and feasts, offering both color and warmth, their threads muffling the sound of footsteps and distant voices. Your chamber is plain, but peaceful. A canopied bed stands against the wall, heaped with woolen blankets and sheepskin throws. A chest at its foot holds your armor and clothing. Light seeps in through a narrow window, cool and gentle, casting a silver glow on the stone. The room feels safe, a place to rest after long days, daily routine and duties. Your life is shaped by the weather and the turning of the land. You wake at the first crow of the rooster or the far-off toll of the church bell, mist curling beyond the windows. Before breakfast, you pause in the chapel or a quiet corner, offering a prayer for the day ahead. Afterward, you walk the grounds, boots damp from the morning dew. You greet the steward, exchange news with tenants, and survey the farm work. Cows in the meadow, fields waiting for plowing or harvest, fences to mend after the last storm. If a neighbor has a grievance, you hear it out and do your best to settle things fairly. Much of your day is spent outside, under a sky that changes by the hour. You ride along the edge of your woodland, looking for signs of poachers or stray livestock, feeling the wind tug at your cloak and the scent of pine and rain in the air. In the yard, you train with bow and sword, sometimes alongside squires, practicing the skills you'll need if ever the peace is broken. Hunting is not just sport, but necessity. You set out with hounds at your side, listening to the calls of birds and the soft crackle of leaves underfoot, bringing back deer or wild hare for the evening meal. As summer wanes, the days grow shorter. In winter, darkness comes early, and the family gathers closer around the hearth. You spend the long evenings reading a precious manuscript, keeping accounts by candlelight, or telling stories of old heroes, of Arthur and his knights, or the green woods of your childhood. Food and table. Meals are honest, filling, and tied to the land. A simple breakfast, coarse rye bread, cheese, and a cup of weak beer or small ale, safer than water, gives you strength for the day. At noon, you might share a hot stew of beef or mutton, thick with barley and root vegetables, sometimes flavored with leeks or wild garlic from the garden. The aroma fills the hall, mingling with wood smoke and the scent of baking. On feast days, the table brightens. Roasted meats, game pies spiced with pepper or herbs, maybe a bowl of sweet apples baked in honey. Food is served on wooden trenchers, eaten with iron knives and horn cups. There are no forks, only fingers and bread to scoop up the broth. The main meal is shared with family, steward, and servants in the great hall. Laughter rises, children's voices echo, and sometimes, if fortune is good, a traveling musician plays for the household, or a guest shares news from distant roads. Clothing and comfort. Your clothing is simple but made to last. A heavy linen shirt and woolen tunic, hose or thick leggings tied at the knee, sturdy leather boots, and a long cloak to keep the wet and cold at bay. In winter, you layer on sheepskin or fox fur, drawing the warmth close as you walk the stone halls. Your armor, whether inherited or earned, hangs on a wooden rack in the main hall, polished and ready for use, its weight a reminder of both tradition and duty. At night, you slip between rough woven sheets and thick blankets, the bed warmed by the slow heat of the fire, or, on special nights, by a stone that's been resting in the coals. Rain taps softly at the window, and you drift to sleep, safe and dry, hygiene and health. Bathing is rare. A few times each year, a wooden tub filled near the hearth, water carried in by servants and heated with patience. Herbs and flowers might be added, lending fragrance and a sense of ceremony to the occasion. The rest of the time, you keep clean with damp cloths and simple soaps, trusting in the fresh air and the drying power of sun and wind. Lice and fleas are constant challenges, so dried herbs and flowers are tucked into the rushes and bedding. Illness is treated with herbal teas, poultices, and rest, guided by the knowledge of wise women or the prayers of the parish priest. The privy stands at a distance from the main house. Chamber pots are emptied each morning. The air inside is kept sweet by fresh rushes and the lingering smoke of last night's fire. Family and social life. Your home is full of quiet company. Your wife oversees the kitchen and household. Children play at your feet or study by lamplight. Servants and workers drift through their duties with steady purpose. Meals are always shared. Everyone gathers in the great hall, from the smallest child to the eldest retainer. Together, you mark the rhythm of the year, planting and harvest, feast and fast, holy days and simple Sundays. The parish church is the heart of the community. Its bells mark each hour. Its festivals draw all the neighbors together for prayer, song, and celebration. On cold nights, the family gathers close, reading stories, playing chess, or simply listening to the wind in the eaves and the quiet comfort of belonging. Children grow up learning discipline, kindness, and faith. Tales of Robin Hood and King Arthur stirring their imaginations as they watch you balance duty and mercy, strength and gentleness. And when the day is done, you stand for a moment on the threshold, feeling the cool air, the damp grass beneath your feet, the peace of your land holding you, quiet and steady, like the hills and woods that have sheltered your family for generations. The English knight at war. Rally and march. When the summons arrives, the world grows heavier. You wake early, rain pattering at the windows, gray skies pressing low over the manor. Word passes swiftly. Your lord or the king calls all loyal men to arms. You gather with your household in the yard, the grass wet underfoot, the chill of the morning seeping through your boots. Squires hurry about, saddling horses, loading supply carts, strapping bundles of arrows and spare mail. Banners, stiff with dew, unfurl above the gathering, your crest bright against the mist. There is a sense of calm urgency. Every man knows his duty. You embrace your family quietly, then mount your horse, feeling the familiar weight of chainmail settle over your shoulders, the cold metal of your helmet cradling your head. The march is long and steady. You ride through muddy lanes, hedgerows glistening with morning rain, your company growing as you join with other knights and men-at-arms. Sometimes wild flowers bend in the fields at your passing. Sometimes the wind from the sea brings the salt and cries of distant gulls. The pace is set by discipline, not drama. There are no grand speeches, just the steady rhythm of hooves, the creak of leather, the quiet talk of men who have done this before. The battlefield. When you reach the army, the mood is focused. The English way is methodical. Every man knows his place. You respect the archers, those long bowmen with their calloused hands and calm faces. They drive stakes into the ground, bracing for the charge to come, arrows glinting in the dim light as they prepare for battle. The ground beneath your feet is churned and muddy. The air is taut with anticipation. Then, the first signal, it starts as a whisper, arrows hissing, then rising in a roar. They darken the sky, a living storm. You see the enemy cavalry stagger and falter, horses screaming, men falling. The English knights often fight on foot, forming a wall of steel with infantry, shield to shield. You grip your sword or poleaxe, feeling the familiar weight, the leather sticky with sweat and rain. You brace as the enemy rushes forward, meeting them with disciplined silence, holding your ground as chaos explodes around you. Close combat is brutal and relentless. The clangor of steel, the cries of the wounded, the wet slap of mud and blood beneath your boots, these become your world. You fight not with reckless fury, but with measured, stubborn endurance, shoulder to shoulder with your men, trusting their training and courage as much as your own. Sometimes, in the thick of it, you glimpse the king's banner through the fog, or a squire risking his life to drag a wounded knight away. There is no room for show, only the slow grinding work of battle, the discipline of holding the line, the patience to endure. Siege and survival. Warfare is often a waiting game. You might find yourself camped before a castle, mud caked to your boots, the scent of wood smoke and boiled grain in the air. You help build earthworks, long walls of timber and dirt, trenches filled with water, siege towers slowly rolled forward under a rain of arrows. Defenders atop the walls drop stones and boiling oil, while you and your companions keep your heads low, trading arrows for days on end. Nights are long, broken by the shouts of sentries and the wind rattling the canvas of your tent. Food grows scarce, tempers fray, but discipline holds. You remember old lessons, how to ration bread, how to keep your armor oiled, how to watch and wait and never let hope die. Inside the walls, defenders ration food, mend wounds, and pray for relief. Outside, you watch, ready for the moment the gate is breached or a white flag rises. Brotherhood and return. When the battle ends, the fields are quiet, broken only by the moans of the wounded and the distant calls of carrion birds. You help gather the injured, sometimes friend, sometimes enemy, binding wounds with what little you have, sharing water, offering comfort where you can. The measure of victory is not only in land gained, but in the number of familiar faces who ride home with you. The return is slow, the company smaller, the mood sober. You ride beneath the same gray skies, your body sore and mind worn thin, but as the manor comes into view, as the rain softens to a drizzle, you feel a quiet gratitude just to be alive, just to see home again. That first night back, you stand by your own hearth, listening to the rain on the windows, the low murmur of family voices in the hall. There is no triumph in your heart, only relief and the deep peace that comes after the storm. You eat honest food, sleep long and dreamlessly, and know that, for a while at least, you are safe. Your night as a night of the German lands. Close your eyes and listen as the world shifts once more. Far from the gentle meadows of France and the rolling English hills, you find yourself at the edge of an ancient, shadowed forest. Here, on the German lands, time feels older, the earth rich with stories, legends, and secrets. The night air carries a chill, tinged with pine resin and the scent of distant wood smoke curling from a half-timbered manor. I, born of stone and timber, childhood among castles and woods, your story begins long before you know the weight of duty in the thick-walled keep high above the river valley. The castle itself seems grown from the very rock, moss clinging to ancient foundations, ivy climbing the rough stones, as if nature and fortress are one. Each morning you wake not to bustle, but to the quiet authority of the land, the hush of mist curling through the narrow window, the distant murmur of the river below, and the low, steady hum of life within the walls. Boots on flagstones, distant voices, the creak of shutters. You are small among these shadows, but curious. The courtyards are your playground, chill stone beneath bare feet, the tang of cold iron from the portcullis, the warmth of sun when it finally cuts through the morning fog. The world outside is a mystery, a vast wilderness where forests stretch unbroken to the horizon, their depths echoing with the croak of ravens and the unending whisper of wind in the pines. Your first lessons are from observation, watching your father as he speaks in the hall, firm but fair, his words carrying the weight of both law and tradition. At the long table, the smell of roasted venison mingles with dark, sour bread and tart cider. The fireside is where legends come alive. Stories of dragons coiling in caves, ancient heroes battling the wild things of the woods, saints holding darkness at bay. These tales shape your dreams. They teach you that the world is full of hidden powers, and that to survive here, you must respect both the land and its mysteries. At night, after prayers whispered in low German, you lie awake beneath a heavy wool blanket, listening to rain drumming the timber roof and thinking of all you have yet to learn. 2. Endurance and obedience, the long apprenticeship of a knapper. When you reach the right age, childhood gentleness gives way to discipline. You are sent to serve as a knappe, a squire, within these same walls, but your days now begin before sunrise and end well past dusk. Life becomes a cycle of labor and learning. In spring, you haul stones to mend the outer walls, your boots caked in mud, your hands stinging from the cold. You fetch water from the well, splitting the icy surface with your pail, breath fogging as you carry it back to the kitchens. Each task is a lesson to be strong, but also to be patient, silent, and precise. Summer brings the hunt. You follow the horn's call through tangled undergrowth, your heart racing as you keep pace with the hounds. The forest is a living labyrinth. Thorns snatch at your sleeves, the air thick with the scent of resin, the thrill of pursuit in every leap and stumble. You learn to trust your senses, to listen for the snap of a branch, to read tracks in the loam, to respect every life taken for the table. Autumn is the time of making. You spend hours in the smithy, the heat of the forge searing your face, your hands black with soot and blisters. Here, you learn to mend a rent in chain mail, to sharpen axes until they gleam, to hammer dents from battered shields. Each clang of hammer on anvil is a reminder that nothing, armor, spirit, or reputation, stays whole without effort. Winter is a stern teacher. Snow piles deep along the battlements. You struggle through drifts to tend the horses, brushing their thick coats as they nuzzle your hands for warmth. You carry wood for the fires, repair leaks with numb fingers, and take your turn standing watch on the coldest nights. You learn to endure hunger and cold, to stay vigilant even when the world seems silent. There is a harsh beauty in the land's stillness, a sense that survival itself is a kind of victory. All the while, you are taught to ride, first bareback in the practice yard, clinging tight as the pony bucks and twists, later astride a powerful war horse, feeling its muscle and energy beneath you as you canter through the forest's shadowed trails. You are schooled not just in the art of battle, but in humility, resilience, and unspoken loyalty, qualities that root you as surely as the ancient trees beyond the walls. Third, the making of a knight. Knighthood in the heart of empire. Years pass, marked by seasons of hard work and slow, steady growth. When you have proven yourself through courage, service, and uncomplaining endurance, you are called to the chapel for the most solemn night of your life. The ceremony is as old as the stones beneath your knees. By flickering candlelight you keep vigil, kneeling alone on cold flagstones, your heart beating with awe and quiet fear. Around you, the air is thick with incense and the murmur of Latin prayers. Your chainmail weighs heavily on your shoulders, as if reminding you of all those who bore it before. At dawn, the old priest anoints your brow and blade. You rise, not a child, not a squire, but a ritter, a knight of the Holy Roman Empire, sworn to uphold justice, defend the church, and protect the innocent. Your family stands with pride. Your Lord clasps your hand, offering a new sword, its hilt warm from his grasp. Your armor is yours at last, mail, shield, surcoat, embroidered with your house's crest. You ride into a world that is both larger and more perilous. Every journey takes you across wild rivers, over misty valleys, and through forests where friend and foe alike might wait in shadow. You are called to counsel in drafty halls lit by torchlight, to stand guard at river crossings, to lead your men on muddy marches beneath sleeting rain or across frozen passes. The empire is vast and shifting, a mosaic of lords, abbeys, and free cities, each with its own demands and dangers. You serve not just your family, but a tangled web of loyalties that stretch as far as the Rhine or the Alps. Yet, most days are spent in the quiet work of stewardship, settling disputes among villagers, inspecting grain stores, patrolling the walls by lantern light, ensuring that justice and order hold firm even as the world beyond your land grows ever more uncertain. IV, the inner world, faith, lore, and solitude. Beneath your armor, you are shaped by more than duty. Your spirit is molded by old stories and older faith. At Yule, you gather with the villagers, lighting huge bonfires to banish the winter's darkness, singing ancient songs that rise into the frozen stars. On holy feast days, you join the monks in the abbey, kneeling in smoky candlelight as chants echo beneath vaulted stone. But solitude is your true teacher. Long rides alone through the woods, listening to the wind speak through the pines, the gurgle of mountain streams, the silence broken only by the calls of wild things, teach you a harmony with the land that goes beyond command. The legends of Siegfried, Hildegard, and the wild hunts of old drift through your mind, coloring your sense of right and wrong, reminding you that every knight is but a fleeting guardian in a world built by countless hands before him. You learn patience, the discipline to wait out storms and sieges, the wisdom to keep silent watch, the humility to seek guidance in prayer. Knighthood here is more than battle. It is an endurance, a willingness to remain steadfast, to find strength in solitude, and to carry the burdens of others. V, the end of the day. Peace in the shadows. When dusk settles and duties fade, you return to your keep, a place not of grandeur, but of shelter. The great hall is alive with firelight, the air scented with stew, fresh baked rye, and sweet beeswax. Companions gather to share news and laughter, to sing old songs, to break bread and raise mugs of dark beer in gratitude for another day survived. After supper, you walk the ramparts. The night air is brisk and clear. You pause to listen to the river below, to the distant hoot of an owl, to the eternal sighing of the wind through the forest. There is a deep satisfaction in knowing your place in this endless cycle, part of a land both ancient and alive, its stories etched in every stone and every tree. In your chamber, you wrap yourself in thick furs, feeling the weight of the keep above you and the deep, grounding strength of the earth below. Outside, the castle glows like a lantern against the darkness. Inside you drift to sleep, the legends of your people whispering through your dreams, the shadows of the German woods keeping watch. The German night, life and home, dwelling and setting. Picture yourself waking before dawn in a great stone castle perched high above the pine forests and winding rivers of the German lands. The air is crisp, touched with the scent of resin and distant wood smoke. From the castle ramparts, you can see the world unfurled below, dark woods fading into mist, crooked fields shaped by many generations, a river glinting in the gray light. Your home is as much fortress as dwelling. Thick stone walls climb upward, braced by tall towers and crowned by the central keep. Each stone cool beneath your hand, each passageway echoing softly with the footfalls of guards and servants. The road to your gate winds steeply through the forest, guarded by iron-studded doors and the watchful eyes of your men. Courtyards are paved with rough, wet stone, sometimes slick with rain or powdery with snow. Horses stamp and snort in the stables, their breath steaming in the cold air. From the forge comes the steady clang of the blacksmith, metal striking metal, and the heavy scent of iron drifting through the mist. Inside, the rooms are small and strong, designed for safety more than comfort. Windows are little more than slits, set deep into the walls. Heavy wooden shutters keep out the winter winds. Tapestries hang everywhere, woven with hunting scenes or ancient battles, holding warmth and softening the echo of voices. The air is rich with smoke, leather, fur, and the faint tang of burning resin. In winter, thick pelts, wolf, bear, or fox, cover benches and beds. Fires burn in deep hearths, but the cold always lingers, curling around your ankles, reminding you that this land is as old and wild as the forest itself. Daily routine and duties. Your day begins in silence and shadow. Long before sunrise, you rise from your fur-lined bed, dress in layers of linen and heavy wool, and make your way to the castle chapel. Candles flicker against stone, and you kneel in the hush, offering prayers for strength and peace. Breakfast is simple. Coarse rye bread, slices of smoked ham or sausage, a piece of sharp cheese, and a cup of sour, foamy beer. The flavors are earthy, the bread thick and dark, the meal quiet but filling. Much of your day is spent managing the estate. You walk the battlements with your steward, checking the state of the walls, watching the forest for any sign of trouble. You hear petitions from tenants, a lost sheep, a border dispute, a question about the coming harvest. Rents are paid in grain, cheese, and honey, carefully weighed and recorded. You visit the fields and outbuildings, grain stores, bee skips, smokehouses, pigsties, making sure all is in order before the cold sets in. Winter is never far away. Even in summer, the wind through the pines has a certain chill. Martial training is a daily ritual. You drill with sword and shield in the yard, the clang of metal ringing across stone. Your squires practice with lances on horseback, circling the training ground, banners snapping in the wind. In the woods, you hunt wild boar with loyal dogs, boots crunching on fallen needles, your breath hanging in the morning air. As the days grow shorter, evenings come early. You gather with family and trusted companions near the great hearth, the room glowing with firelight and shadows. Minstrels play slow songs on lutes or horns, and sometimes an old saga is told. The room fallen still as you listen to the legends of Siegfried, Hildegard, or the wild hunts that run through the forest on stormy nights. Food and table. Your table is always sturdy, always full. Black bread, dense and chewy, is broken, not sliced, by your own hand and shared with all. Smoked meats, ham, sausage, or venison, fill the air with rich, savory scent. Cabbage and turnip stew bubbles in iron pots. River fish are roasted over the open fire. Cheese, sharp and earthy, rounds out the meal. Much of the food is heavily salted or spiced to keep it through the long winter. Jars of sauerkraut and pickled vegetables line the shelves. On feast days, the hall is bright with laughter and the clatter of mugs. Dark beer poured freely, a little wine from the Rhine, if trade has been good. Meals are eaten with simple wooden spoons and knives, shared with family, retainers, and guests. Table customs are strict, but warm. Bread is passed, prayers are said, stories and toasts fill the gaps between courses. Clothing and comfort. You dress for the seasons and the cold, a linen undertunic against your skin, thick woolen surcoat above, broad leather belt, sturdy boots laced high. In winter, you drape yourself in pelts, wolf, bear, fox, letting their warmth guard you from the stone's chill. Your armor hangs close at hand, always ready, a hauberk of mail, polished plate for the chest and shoulders, shield painted with your family's crest. Each piece is cared for, repaired, and passed from father to son. At night, you draw heavy curtains across the bed, wrap yourself in furs, and let the steady heat of the fire ease you toward sleep. hygiene, and health. Bathing is a rare, treasured event. Sometimes, when time allows, a wooden barrel is filled near the fire, water heated and mixed with wild herbs, juniper, rosemary, mint, for their fragrance and their healing. In the towns below, steam baths and bathhouses offer warmth and company. But on the hill, you rely on fire, furs, and a brisk wash with cold water and rough cloth. For illness or injury, you turn to the wisdom of midwives, monks, and herbalists, comfrey and chamomile for wounds, honey for coughs, and prayers spoken softly over the sickbed. More serious cases are met with patience, hope, and the steady support of family and servants. Family and social life. Your home is never empty. Family, squires, a resident priest, and a retinue of servants fill the rooms with quiet life. Children learn to read the sky, the trees, and the seasons. Squires learn respect, discipline, and skill at arms. Loyalty is everything. Oaths to local lords and to the distant emperor bind your house to a wider world. Hospitality is sacred. When guests arrive, friends or wandering strangers, they are welcomed with food, drink, and a place by the fire. On feast days, music rings through the hall. Feet beat the flagstones in old dances, and mugs of dark beer pass from hand to hand. Ancient tales are retold in the glow of firelight. Stories of the forest, the old gods, the saints, and the proud deeds of your ancestors. These stories shape the hopes of children and the dreams of elders, binding all to the unbroken line of your land. As night deepens, you stand for a moment atop the ramparts, breathing in the cold pine-scented wind, the silence broken only by the distant howl of a wolf. Your castle is both shield and shelter, a stronghold of tradition, memory, and pride, rooted in the hills and stories that have shaped your people for centuries. The German knight at war, the muster and oath. When war comes to the German lands, it arrives not with shouts, but with the slow toll of duty. You are woken before dawn, the castle shrouded in mist, pines whispering against stone walls. In the yard below, your retainers gather, boots crunching on damp gravel, iron crests glinting on helmets and shields. Hounds bark and leap at the morning cold, their breath steaming as servants lead out the horses, stamping and restless. Preparation is a ritual, slow and solemn. Your squire lays out your linen undertunic, your sturdy mail, your surcoat, dyed in deep colors and marked with your family's sigil. The sword is heavy in your hands, its edge lovingly sharpened the night before, its cross-guard cool against your palms. The old priest stands in the courtyard, raising his hand in blessing, murmuring prayers in Latin as he marks your blade with a thumb stained by oil and ash. You feel the weight of the moment settle in your bones, the oaths sworn to Lord, to Emperor, to God himself. Soon you are mounted, Riding out beneath a sky pale with early light, the company silent, but strong behind you. Forest roads wind beneath ancient pines, dew soaking your boots and the legs of your horse. Hooves thud on soft earth, echoing the promise you have sworn to keep. The land breathing quietly as you pass, fighting in the wild. War here is not the glory of open fields, but the hard trial of rough country. Battles break in tangled forests, along narrow ridges, beside rivers that twist between hills. The air is thick with pine and damp earth. Sunlight slants through the branches in broken patterns. You know every path and hidden hollow, where water rises fast, where roots tangle, where a quiet glen might turn deadly if an enemy lies in wait. Tactics are wary and clever. You send scouts ahead. Listen for the silence that means danger. Sometimes you fight from horseback, lance level, as you lead a charge down a wooded slope. Sometimes you dismount, sword in hand, shield tight against the rush of arrows, boots slipping on moss and wet leaves. Each command is crisp, every order obeyed. Your men, seasoned by drills with sword, axe, and lance, move as one, their discipline a bulwark against panic. The horses, too, are sure-footed, picking their way through chaos, trained to wheel at your touch. Sometimes you find yourself holding a bridge at dawn, mist swirling around your legs, the river dark and cold below. The enemy presses from both banks, shouts echoing between stone and water. You fight in the press, each blow an act of will, each step a contest of strength and memory. At your side are squires and companions, men you have trained, boys grown strong and loyal, bound to you by years of shared hardship and promise. Here, in the wild and shifting land, you stand together, steady, silent, enduring, sieges and defenses. Many battles turn to siege. Your castle, stone stronghold atop a wooded hill, is ringed with wooden palisades, the outer yard crowded with the bustle of men at the lowing of cattle brought inside for safety. Smoke from enemy fires curls up beyond the walls. Tents dot the distant meadows, their banners bright in the sunlight. Days pass in vigilant labor. You walk the ramparts, watching the enemy's movements. Archers scan the horizon, waiting for a sign. You ration bread, dried meat, and ale, dividing what little you have, comforting your people with words and quiet strength. Below, the enemy builds siege towers or digs beneath the walls. Stones, arrows, and boiling water are readied for the inevitable assault. Nights are broken by alarms, a shout in the darkness, the clang of the bell, the rush of men to the battlements. You hold council by candlelight, maps and plans spread across the table, shadows flickering on tired faces. To keep hope alive, you share old stories, tales of Siegfried and dragon slaying, of saints and ancestors, each word a shield against the fear of defeat. Honor and endurance. What guides you is not glory, but oath, faith to emperor, to land, to the ancient code. Desertion is unknown, unthinkable. You pray with your men, hymns rising over the dark pines at dawn and dusk. When victory comes, you celebrate with singing and beer, raising mugs to the sky, grateful for survival and the strength of the walls. When defeat finds you, you accept it with stoic resolve, trusting in endurance and the promise of another day. You carry wounds quietly. Scars are not paraded, but known by those who share them. In the quiet after battle, you walk the parapets at dusk, the cold wind tugging at your cloak, the forest below deep and unchanged. After the battle, for all knights, war is a trial, a crucible of courage, patience, and spirit. You fight for family, for lord and emperor, for the honor woven through your name. But in every heart is the hope for home, the warmth of firelight, the laughter of children, the comfort of old stone and familiar woods. And so, when battle ends and quiet falls, you return to your keep, closing the great doors against the night. You sit by the fire, the world outside hushed and peaceful, and give thanks for survival, for brotherhood, for the ancient hope that someday peace will endure as long as the hills themselves, the 100 Years' War. Imagine you are far from your own warm bed, carried across centuries by the sound of distant bells and the flicker of firelight. The year is 1415. The world is colder, darker, wilder. Your breath rises in pale clouds as you watch flames lick at the night sky. Flickering above English, French, and German camps spread across a sodden, churned-up field in northern France. Picture it. You are a knight, not a myth, not a legend, but a living soul, aching with fatigue, uncertain about tomorrow, wrapped in layers of wool and steel. You're surrounded by comrades and strangers, the air filled with the crackle of kindling and the distant bray of a horn. Maybe you fight for the golden lilies of France, the red cross of St. George, or the double-headed eagle of the empire. It doesn't matter. Tonight, you all feel the same trembling in your chest, the same longing for home, the same pulse of fear and hope beneath your armor. Let's begin here on the eve of a great battle, as 3 fires burn beneath the endless French sky. Each flame lights the faces of men from different lands, English, French, and German, each with their own story, dreams, and doubts. What unites them is not hatred, but the simple, unchanging wish to survive, to see their families again, to walk beneath the open sky in peace. Tonight, as the world holds its breath, let's step closer to those fires. Let's discover what it truly means to live, fight, and endure as a knight during the 100 Years' War. Prologue. War is coming. Across France, bells ring through the dusk, slow, heavy, echoing off cathedral spires and lonely watchtowers. Smoke drifts above vineyards and farmhouses, mingling with the gray mist that always seems to cling to the fields before battle. In distant England, the same night feels damp and restless. Lanterns sway in manor courtyards. Soldiers stamp cold feet around piles of smoldering peat. From the west, the wind brings salt and the sharp scent of rain, setting every tent flap to trembling. Farther east, in the German lands, the air is sharper still. Pine resin and wood smoke thick beneath the fortress walls. The forest presses close, full of ancient secrets and the howl of wolves far away. Here, too, men gather in the torchlit gloom, preparing for a dawn that may be their last. You, the listener, are invited to become one of these knights. Feel the stiff collar of your gambeson, the cold kiss of steel as your squire fastens your mail, the soft, choked prayers whispered by loved ones as you mount your horse and take your place in the line. Tomorrow you will meet the eyes of an enemy, a stranger who dreams in another language, whose heart is filled with his own story and sorrow. Why has this war come? Some say it began over crowns and borders, a tangle of bloodlines and oaths, of English kings claiming rights to the French throne. Others blame old grudges, wounded pride, and the hunger for land and glory. In truth, no one remembers a world without conflict. War has become the music of these times, a drumbeat echoing through the generations. But war is not just banners and trumpets. It is long nights of doubt, shivering under rough blankets, the ache of hunger, the ache of memory. This is the war you will live through tonight, preparing for campaign. Beneath the arch of a stone chateau, the French knight waits in the orange glow of torchlight. His squire kneels at his side, hands trembling as he tightens the straps on battered greaves. The air is thick with incense from the chapel. His mother's prayers drift in through stained glass, mingling with the scent of baking bread from the kitchens. Before dawn, he visits the stables. Horses nicker, stamping their hooves on soft straw. The knight runs a hand along the flank of his favorite destrier, whispering to calm them both. He bows his head for a final blessing. The priest marks his brow with holy oil. Family gathers, children tugging at his sleeves, wife pressing a simple token into his palm, a blue ribbon for luck and memory. As he straps on his helmet, he tries to ignore the dread in his chest, focusing on the memory of summer in his father's vineyards, the laughter of his sister, the warm sun on his face. He knows tomorrow he will need to be more than a man. He will need to be a shield for everything and everyone he loves. Rain spatters the flagstones of the English manor yard. The knight stands beneath a low eave, methodically checking each buckle and strap of his mail. He counts everything: swords, arrows, loaves of bread, knowing that preparation is the first shield against disaster. He moves through the hall in silence, his boots leaving muddy prints. His steward receives last-minute orders. Protect the harvest. Tend to the animals. Look after the widow at the edge of the village. His wife stands by the hearth, pulling his cloak tighter around his shoulders. She says little, only meeting his eyes for a heartbeat, but her courage steels him more than any armor. As the dawn breaks, the knight takes one final look at his home. The hedgerows, the apple trees, the rough hills rolling into the mist. He reminds himself that duty is not just battle, but care for land and people who cannot fight for themselves. High on a cold hill, the German Ritter stands in a courtyard of gray stone. The fortress is alive with the clang of arms, the calls of men, the barking of dogs restless before departure. A priest stands before him, tracing the family crest on his shield with holy water. Old retainers gather, some with sons, some with brothers. The oath is spoken in low, grave voices, pledges to the emperor, to God, and to the honor of their house. Before leaving, he inspects the stores, checks the grain and barrels of beer, and gives orders for the care of the aged and the young. As he rides through the fortress gate, the pine-scented wind stings his face. He looks down over forests that seem endless, shadowed and silent. He knows that survival will depend not just on skill with sword or lance, but on discipline, unity, and the endurance carved into him by a lifetime beneath these ancient trees. The road to war, life on campaign. Night falls again, and armies begin to move. The French host advances beneath silk banners, horses stamping as they cross muddy meadows and narrow forest lanes. The air is thick with the smell of crushed grass and sweat. Noblemen laugh around the campfires, wine flowing from leather skins as minstrels pluck out bright songs of love and valor. But not everyone is at ease. Younger knights stare into the fire, running their fingers over rosaries or the edge of a letter from home. The march is a test. Blisters and chafing, cold rain dripping from feathered helmets, the endless ache of muscles. Food is richer than most, but sometimes even the wealthiest find themselves gnawing on tough bread, waiting for a taste of roasted game or yesterday's stew thickened with beans. Gossip buzzes through the tents, rumors of English archers, of German mercenaries hired by rival lords, of a miraculous relic carried into battle. Pride keeps the men upright, but every night the French knight lies awake, longing for the soft fields of home. The English army marches in silence, boots squelching through mud and heather. The sky is a low, gray ceiling, the fields haunted by crows. There is little pageantry. Men move by habit, their voices quiet, saving breath for the miles ahead. Meals are plain, hard biscuits, salt beef, cheese that tastes of old cellars, cold water drawn from brown streams. When they stop, knights strip wet cloaks and gather round peat fires, their faces half hidden in the gloom. There is a comfort in routine, sharpening a blade, counting arrows, rubbing warmth back into numb fingers. By night, The men speak softly of home, the shape of a wife's hand, the sound of church bells on Sunday, the promise of a harvest yet to come. Worry rides behind every word about the weather, about the enemy, about the fate that waits beyond the next hill. Yet the English knight finds strength in simplicity. He knows the land will remember him even if the king forgets. The German retinue moves through shadowy forests and along stony riversides, their numbers tight, order precise. The air is brisk, laced with pine, and their horses are built for endurance, hooves sure on rock and sodden earth alike. Discipline is the unspoken rule. The knights eat smoked sausage, black bread, strong cheese, and sour beer from wooden mugs. There are fewer songs here. Most nights men mutter prayers or share low jokes in dialects from the Rhine or Saxon hills. Superstition clings to the group. Talismans hung on saddles, stories whispered of spirits in the trees, prayers offered to saints and ancient gods alike. The German knight's thoughts are his own, but sometimes he finds himself longing for the cool halls of his family's keep, the deep voice of his father, the silent strength of his land. He endures, cold, wet, hungry, but finds purpose in unity and the old stories that bind his brothers together, contrasts and common threads. The journey tests them all. Some grow sick, others desert, but most endure, bound by loyalty, by fear, by the thread of hope that they will see home again. French banners shine in the morning sun. English archers march with their heads bowed. German spears rise like a silent forest. Yet beneath the armor all hearts beat the same, longing for rest, for warmth, for the end of the march. Dreams each night blur together, a patchwork of memory, anxiety, and the shadow of the battle to come. Skirmishes and battles. The reality of war. The dawn is always colder before battle. The three hosts draw near, their scouts clashing in the hedgerows, their banners glimpsed across smoky fields. The ground is slick with rain and churned earth, puddles reflecting a pale, nervous sky. The French knights gather beneath fluttering banners, armor gleaming with pride and sweat. Horses are restless, stamping in the muddy paddocks. Commanders debate tactics. Should they charge with all the flower of French chivalry, or wait and draw out the foe? The air smells of horse, wet leather, and fear. The trumpets blare, and a wall of mounted men moves forward, powerful, bold, but vulnerable in the deep, clinging mud. The English line is quiet and patient. Longbowmen hammer stakes into the soft earth, sharpening points and stringing bows with practiced hands. Knights check their harnesses, then kneel together for a simple prayer, mud caked to their boots. When the signal comes, the sky darkens with arrows, thousands in a single breath, falling with a hiss like rain. The English fight with cold calculation, knowing that every arrow counts, Every inch of ground must be earned with sweat and blood. The Germans stand in tight formation, pikes and halberds braced. Mercenaries mutter in half a dozen dialects, but all watch the horizon for the enemy's first move. Their captains walk the lines, correcting, encouraging, reminding all that honor lies not in bravado, but in survival and discipline. The first charge is met with a wall of iron. The air is thick with grunts, the clash of steel, the shock of bodies colliding. The German night's world becomes noise, pressure, the slippery grip of a bloody polearm. The siege, waiting, enduring, surviving. The battle has passed, but the war is not over. Now comes the slow, grinding ordeal of siege. A world shrunk to walls of stone, moats of mud, and endless nights broken by alarms. In a battered French stronghold, defenders huddle together. Food dwindles. Bread goes stale. Beans and lentils are counted out. Wine is stretched with well water. The rooms are smoky, crowded, heavy with the scent of sweat, burnt tallow, and fear. Each night you climb the ramparts, feeling the chill seep into your bones, peering out at distant campfires of the enemy. In the chapel, a priest leads prayers for deliverance. Wounded men groan in the corners. Children whisper lullabies to each other. Yet, through the hunger and dread, life continues. A mother braids her daughter's hair. A blacksmith hammers out a bent horseshoe by candlelight. A knight writes a shaky letter home. The English besiegers camp outside the city, their own hardships mounting. Rain seeps through every seam of the tents. Fires sputter in the wind. Rations are thin. Hardtack, old cheese, salted fish. Wounds fester. Boots rot. Tempers flare. Yet the routines hold. Archers patrol the lines. Cooks boil thin stew. Medics mix herbs and hope against fever. At night, you watch the enemy walls, wondering what stories unfold within. Who waits for relief? Who despairs? Who prays for a miracle? You remember your own manor and wonder if anyone there lights a candle for you. The Germans are scattered. Some hold towers within the besieged city. Others serve as mercenaries in the camps beyond. For all, the siege is a test of discipline and patience. Meals are shared in silence, eyes fixed on the smoke rising from distant farms. Jokes are fewer now. Men clutch tokens and talismans. When a breach comes, you must fight again, through ruined gates, across shattered walls, in narrow alleys where every corner hides danger. Victory and survival are measured not in banners taken, but in friends who remain by your side. Truce, return, and loss. At last, the horns of truce echo across the fields. A white flag rises, slow, uncertain, hopeful. Soldiers on both sides lay down arms. Some fall to their knees, weeping with relief. Others stand in stunned silence, unable to believe the ordeal is truly over. The return home is bittersweet. French knights limp back to chateau, scarred by war. The grapevines are tangled with weeds, the hearth cold, the laughter quieter. But home is still home. English nights cross muddy fields toward the sound of familiar bells, greeted by children grown taller and friends whose faces are marked with loss and time. German nights ascend deep roads back to their stone keeps, greeted by the hush of ancient woods and the quiet pride of old retainers. Some bring scars on face, on hand, on soul. Some bring stories of honor, others of sorrow. All return changed, touched forever by the hardship and the strange, fierce love of those who stood with them. Conclusion: under the same sky. And so the war ends, but its memory lingers like mist at dawn. In the quiet of night, 3 nights, 1 French, 1 English, 1 German, lie awake beneath the same wide sky, listening to the slow, steady beat of their hearts. They remember the mud, the fear, the flicker of fires, the laughter and loss. They know now a knight's greatest battle is not against his enemy, but against despair, loneliness, and the longing for peace. Tonight, as you listen to these stories, you share in the ancient hope that connects every warrior, every family, every soul that dreams of home. No matter your country, your name, or your fate, when the swords are set aside and the hearth glows warm, we are all just people, grateful for another dawn. Rest well, traveler. The battles are over. Let the quiet of night bring you peace, and may the gentle dreams of a better world light your sleep, tonight and always.